All right. So let's get started. You can already go to slide 2. Everything is entertainment is my presentation. That's me and my wife right there. My name is Gucu. I run New Moon Entertainment. We are a boutique entertainment company catering to mostly the corporate and special events industry here in Vegas and in Los Angeles. My wife and I launched our company in April of 2015 and are now celebrating our 7th year in business. So thank you very much. And we survived COVID. So the question, how does one jump into the entertainment booking arena? It's no secret that a lot of people that launch entertainment companies are entertainers themselves. It's a very easy transition to slide to the left and to the business side once you've done it long enough. Well, for the last 26 years, I've been a professional singer and entertainer in a few different projects, but most of my time on stage has been spent in a 1980s tribute band called 80s Station, originally called Love Shack if you've been in Vegas for a while, after the B-52 song. Anyone? Anyone remember that one? All right. So the band still performs locally at Fremont Street. Experience downtown on the weekends. In fact, I'm going over there right after this presentation. And at this stage, I call it paid exercise. And you can go ahead and slide 3. All right. And there's a crowd shot right there. I started the band in 1995 with 5 other musicians out of high school. We originally had 6 members. Little did we know that our little concept would go on to gross upwards of 500 to 600,000 a year for the first 10 years we were together. So we were all in our 20s, making anywhere from $60,000 to $85,000 playing cover music. Needless to say, we got spoiled. That's what happened. So once the market started to change, 80s fans got a little older, started to stay at home, things of that nature. We started to see some competition in the market, and then the prices of what we were getting paid started to diminish a little bit. So we all were like, oh man, we gotta find other jobs to do now to supplement. So we performed up and down the strip. We've traveled as far as China and have had the honor of performing for many corporate clients, including Microsoft, Cisco Systems, and HBO, to name a few. There's our buddy, now the vaccine expert, Mr. Lopez. As the years progressed, I started to learn the formula of booking talent, quite simply through osmosis. We learn from our environment, as you well know. And what I learned, the next slide, please, it is really that all special events are just an organized collective of different forms of entertainment. The location, the decor, the food, the lighting, and of course the talent are all pieces of a larger puzzle that weave the tapestry of the experience itself, which is at its core entertainment. So the backbone of entertainment is a word this room is very familiar with, is hospitality, which by definition is the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, or strangers.
Yeah.
Right? Are you done with that? All right, good. What some event planners tend to forget is that the friendly and generous part of that definition should pertain to not only the invited guests, but to all people involved. The vendors, the staff, the entertainers, basically everyone involved in making the experience fantastic. And why? Because everything and everyone contributes to the energy of an event. And the goal of all event planners, and if it's not, you're in the wrong business, with any event is to have good energy in the atmosphere, right? We want to mitigate any type of negativity, any spills, trips, falls. This guy didn't show up with enough tablecloths, the whole 9 yards, right? So the question is, how does an event planner achieve good energy at an event? And the short answer is by providing good hospitality to all involved. In other words, to entertain your entertainers, right? In the early 2000s, I performed a weekly 70s and 80s show in Scottsdale, Arizona, at one of the hottest nightclubs at the time. I remember being in the bathroom and noticed that I was actually relieving myself, number one, next to Charles Barkley. You might be familiar with him if you know basketball. So just want to have celebrity atmosphere. It's common for celebrities to be there partying. You got next slide, please. That's Charles Barkley, in case you forgot. Now, before the venue hired us, they flew us down to the club. They wined us, they dummied us, they exaggerated how amazing the experience was going to be for all involved. We signed the deal and flew down a few weeks later for our first show. Upon arrival, we quickly realized the honeymoon was already over. For example, in the contract, they promised us a suitable dressing area. We'll see that next slide. I'm not even joking. When we arrived, we were literally escorted by the janitor, no less, to his broom closet. It was 6 feet wide by about 10 feet deep. It was a storage area for his big surprise and alcohol reserves. No chairs, no tables, no mirror. And at the time, there were 6 musicians in the band, all with costume changes. And of course, we immediately demanded better accommodations, which was met with, please just deal with it for now, and we'll get it fixed down the road. That day never came. So we had to figure out how to make that work, and by the end of our stint there, it was pretty comfortable, actually. We worked it out. Of course, we were professionals, so we smiled through the less than cordial hospitality made it work, but not without feeling like it just started stepchild. So rhetorical questions. How excited do you think we were to play that venue each week? And how do you think our subtle energy translated to the audience and or staff while we were there? I'm not asking for event planners to roll out the red carpets for their vendors. It's staff, obviously. They're hired to do a job and they're getting paid to do it, right? What I'm saying is keep in mind that a great event begins with a great team. A great team is run by a great event planner, and a great planner knows how to make people feel great, and that includes everyone involved. So with that, I wanted to touch upon another topic, choosing the right talent for your event. So years ago, again, my 80s band was hired by a local agent. I won't say names. It wasn't an agent, for a 4th of July event at the classic, but now demolished Riviera Hotel and Casino. This was fun, right? Check this out. We arrived that day in the main ballroom. We immediately noticed something that had all of our eyebrows raised with absolute concern. Smack dab in the middle of the room was a 1960s Bell AH-1 Cobra attack helicopter. Okay, the kind used in Vietnam. If we can see that next slide. All right, so that was part of the decor. And the Vietnam War ended in 1975. I was 3 years old. As I recall from the history books, the soldiers that returned from that war were not exactly greeted by a younger generation of appreciative, patriotic Americans. Only 6 short years later, in August of 1981, MTV was launched, and the Brat Pack generation was born. The silver spoon, indulgent, me era was in full effect. So anyway, as we assumed, in that moment of realization of showtime, we walked out on stage to a room filled with ex-Vietnam vets. If you could see a shot of the audience here. Not exactly your quintessential 80s fans at the time, and probably never will be. So we were the last thing these guys wanted to hear and see for the next 3 hours. After numerous and eventually angry requests for "We've got to get out of this place" by the Animals. If you don't know that song, does that ring a bell with anyone? We've got to get out of this place. We did not do that song. We did finally get out of that place, leaving behind a trail of frowns and disapproval. So the lesson learned on this as a musician performing at the time, and from my future path, It was know your audience. Know your audience. This is an extreme example of a bad booking, but on a more subtle note, what I run into sometimes is an event planner commonly wants that will work directly for a company as an employee, right? So they're not an independent planner. They're actually under the umbrella of the company itself. Their job is to plan all of the company events for the employees. And sometimes this is an experienced event planner that is brought in, but more often than not, it's an existing employee from another department that's just moved into that position, has no idea what they're doing, right? So the common mistake in this scenario is that this person basically projects, they project what seems to be fun to him or her without taking into consideration the majority of the company's employee demographic, right? And I've literally had, I'm sorry about got a little loud there. And I've literally had the event planner at the event itself come up and start requesting music that doesn't fit the theme or, or the demographic at all. So, long story short, I recently had an event planner hire a DJ to play all 70s and 80s for an employee party. I asked her if those genres fit the company demographic, and she said yes. So as it turns out, the median age of the guests was around 32, and it was the social media startup company I wanted to change. So all night long, the DJ was in a tug of war between the planner and all of the millennials in the room. And we'll see the next slide here. It was literally Donna Summer and Bon Jovi versus 50 Cent Beyonce all night long, right? It was a tug of war. She would come up with one too many cocktails in her system, and then all the millennials would come up after her, and then it was just back and forth all night. Why are you playing this? Why are you playing this? And we got it from both sides. Another thing, so the presentation here tonight, how do you wow with entertainment? I wanted to give you a broad spectrum. I'm not going to sit here and tell you a million different acts that I think you should hire for your next event, because each event is so, unique and has a different theme and has a different budget. So each one you have to cater to all of those different aspects, of course, right? But what I do want to tell you is that one of the trends that we're seeing with the tech generation coming into the market and getting older is that instead of hiring one piece of entertainment that's going to cover a 3 to 4 hour shift, it's becoming a little more trendy to hire several pieces of entertainment. And then what you can do to kind of mitigate the expenses on that is to ask a band, for instance, if they're going to come in, don't have them do 3 or 4 45 to 1 hour sets, right? Have them put it into a specialized 90-minute pow, bam, and they're back out. And then ask them for a discount. And if they're not there on site for as long a period of time, then you have a chance to bring in some other pieces of entertainment and make the event a little more exciting, right? A little more variety and keep the guests engaged a little bit more. Because as you well know, and I'm Generation X, and even my attention span has changed from adapting to social media for the last 20, 30 years. The new generations are lightning fast. Their minds are moving very fast, and they want to see things change constantly, just like they're scrolling on their cell phones. So keep that in mind with your events as well, that when you're planning your entertainment, to maybe see if you can offer a couple of different, for a variety of options. So, so this is my presentation today is pretty quick. I wanted to leave time for any questions, because I know everyone has different questions about dealing with entertainment vendors or on-site questions that you have as far as tech or sound AV. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask? What's that?
So while you were saying the experiences you had in the past, how did you go about the challenges of, performing because you're an entertainer? It doesn't fit to the demographics of the audience. So how did you go about that and just going forward because you're expected to entertain them?
Well, are you talking about the events that we showed up, like the Vietnam one? I mean, there was nothing we could do. A band has to practice and rehearse for weeks on end to learn new material. So we just ended up just, you know, trudging through that whole event. It just walked out with our heads between our tails and realized that our agent had booked us at the wrong event. So what I do as a company owner is I take that example, of course, from my history and I apply it to my current events to make sure that we really know the demographic. That's one of my first questions when looking at entertainment. Who are we dealing with? Not only age, but sex. Or do you have 70% women? Do you have 10% men? I mean, is it 90% men and they all want to smoke cigars all night? We talk about war stories. Those are the types of things that we ask right up front now to make sure that we're walking in with the right entertainment. Does that make sense? Cool. Any other questions? Bring it on. Anything. Anything at all. We do sound production too, up to about 2,000 people in the ballroom. Once it goes into like concert level, we'll bring in some of our vendor partners. So we have a little bit of AV expertise as well. And I'm happy to report that my wife is actually going to be joining TISO in May to expand her vocabulary into the event sector. Because right now we're really primarily an entertainment vendor. But as we continue to grow and expand, she's going to start taking over the events name. So I'm looking forward to sort of, vicariously living through her and her training at TISA. Yeah. Licenses? Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, that's definitely changed. Yeah. And it's funny because the United history, I don't know if you guys come across this as well, but it's kind of this like, I don't know if you've ever filled out something like something, but like, it'll ask like, what field does your job fall into? And you never see that topic. You never see event planners. It's like this mystery job that's off the radar. So it's like an off-grid, career. So what our license falls under is just promoter. So because it's our ability to promote something to someone else. And there's a state, Clark County, and Las Vegas licenses. Business licenses. Yeah. Yeah, watch out for those guys. Watch out for those guys. Ask for a license to you down. If you're unfamiliar with them, it's just one of these things.
Maybe to piggyback off that, if there are licenses to get, does that make me be able to go to my, future prospect company or whatever and check out my license? Does that give me more money? Does that make me more marketable? Does that make me more valuable?
It just makes you legal. It just makes you legal.
But I'm already an independent contractor, which is what I'm constantly being hired for, which is brand ambassador, which is promoter.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I get your licenses and this puts you right with the state. It makes you a legal entity. It's something that if something goes dramatically wrong, they have a reference where they can find your company and get something, legal action against you if you do something like grossly terrible, that sort of thing. I don't think it gives you much more edge or anything. It's literally just a requirement legally to be a business running in this industry. Right? So some of the things that we get you leverage are accreditations, things of that nature, affiliations with associations, and any of those types of entitlements or associations. Someone else have a question?
What would you want players or coordinators to know as an entertainment provider about the technical aspects of the cost and everything? What what's the coact you do? Except,
Yeah, so one of the things that's overlooked a lot of the times, and one of the things I'm very stringent about is making sure that if a band, for instance, is on location from sound check to the end of their performance, they might be on site for 6, 7 hours, you know what I mean, from start to finish. And so I always, tell my clients that we're going to require a green room, we're going to have food and beverage back there, we're going to have to feed these guys because they're stuck essentially, especially once the event starts. They can't go wander around and grab food. They might have a 15-minute break, but they have to get some more fuel in their body because on stage you're burning anywhere from 500 to 1,500 calories in one show. A few sets. So they're burning energy, and if they don't have a fuel resource that they can grab quickly, they're going to start to tuck out. So give them some caffeine, give them some food. You don't have to give them alcohol. You don't want to give musicians alcohol, license to drink. Make sure you say, hey, listen, keep it on the sober tip. But you do want to extend that, and that goes along with what I was just saying. Like, you want to make sure that you're extending that hospitality to your entertainers, because when they show up and they see that you're taking care of them, they're going to be in a really good mood. They're going to be excited to entertain their audience. They're going to feel that human touch.
Just to follow up, is that part of your contract assessment that
Yeah, in fact, when we send pitches, we have a signature that we assign to that email that literally just has like, if the band is going to be on site, we'll look at this amount of time, expect that we're going to ask for food, expect that we're going to ask for this much water, a green room, things of that nature. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You want to try and get that out. You want to be transparent with that right out of the gate, so that the event planner is very aware. Or a lot of people seem to be asked to just show up with all the sound gear. That's especially in this city, that just doesn't happen. These musicians are often, a lot of musicians in Las Vegas are coming from a gig or heading to another gig, a late night gig. So they're not going to sit there and bring out a whole PA system. You're gonna have to realize that if the band is $5,000, you might spend another $4,000 on sound production, or $10,000, depending on the size of the event. I mean, obviously, we just did an event over in Mandalay Bay and brought in a band from Florida, and the production alone, just raising that stage by the Mandalay pool bay, was $35,000. The tech labor was another $15,000, just to make that happen. And that was for a company called Workday, and there was about 2,500 people on the beach. So that gives you an idea, and that's a larger size production. They had crazy huge flown array speakers and the whole shebang. You've probably seen the concert or something out there at Mandalay. So, but that's the numbers. Those are the hard numbers of just production, not the talent at all. So keep that in mind as well, and always ask, does the band come with their own sound? And 9 times out of 10 in this town, and here's the other thing, if they do come with the sound, make sure you vet it, because that might be a couple of speakers on stands for a crowd of 2,000 people. The band might not be educated enough to know that they actually need to bring more sound, So make sure that you speak with the hotel, you know your pass, your number, all that stuff, and you know that you're going to have enough sound on site to project to your audience. Yeah.
So, across the board, how do you wow? An event. Across the board, like,
So-
if I have a wedding of 50 people, or if I have 1,000 people coming to raid, just
Right. So all of the things that I just mentioned in summary, without going into great detail, because like I said, you really need to just listen to your client. What do they need to? You're not going to wow them if they're into this and you show them with this. You know what I mean? So it's really listening to your client, catering to the experience, giving them variety if you can. Upselling, saying, okay, so you've got this DJ over here, what if you add this, what if you add that? What if you have some roaming entertainment? What if you have the champagne dress? All these elements, some of these elements you've seen in the market, ways to just bring entertainment into the decor spectrum, give them little nooks and crannies to look at and experiential things to interact with. That's how you're going to widen your audience, by catering to all the little details of what they might want to see or partake in. You know what I mean? All the special items. So that happens beyond just human entertainment as well. It comes down to your decor. It comes down to your catering. What does your food look like? Is it presented beautifully? Does it look awesome? All of these factors are part of the entertainment itself. So that's really the way you're going to wow your audience, by finding out what your client is into the most and what their demographic looks.
Aside from like bands and things, what other types of entertainment are really popular right now? Like the champagne dresses, of course, that's been around for a long time, but is there anything like new that you're finding is really popular that you're getting a lot of requests for in different types of events?
Yeah, I mean, there's it varies from event to event. Variety is trending in general. Just offering more nuances. That just one focal point, essentially. If you're turning even in the bathrooms of the venue, you can entertain people there. Look at every cranny of the room. There's so many different trends. I mean, this week we have breakdancing roller skaters going out. We have ice skaters on a real ice rink going out for Home Depot. It's across the board. It really is. You never know what they're going to ask for and what you're going to be able to come up with. A lot of the times it depends on what they might have seen at another event, and then they'll call you and say, "Hey, do you guys have this? Do you guys have that?" LED bowl. We're not a prop house, but we had a request for an LED bull riding machine. Not just that they wanted like a modern one, so I don't know where they saw this thing. You know what I mean? But they wanted to ride an LED electronic bull, like a modern bull riding piece of entertainment. I didn't even know who to call. I called up all my gaming guys, like, you haven't seen that yet. So a lot of the times the trends will just present themselves to you through a phone call. You're like, where did you see that thing, man? But yeah, so I don't want to give you like a general answer of this or that's trending, because the thing is you're always dealing with clients that have different levels of entertainment taste and how do I say it? Like some people are still stuck in the 70s. Like they don't even know. You'll get a small company from Oklahoma. Okay, they're going to be way different than a tech company out of San Francisco. They're going to be super happy with just this country rock guy singing some songs. These guys are going to want like a full production up here from San Francisco. You know what I mean? So you never know. It's really about listening to your audience, because even if you do have some cool Chinese stuff, it might not be right for them. You could show them like, oh man, that's too much. It's just a little too much. So you have to really take the temperature of your client to know what they're going to get into, because you might end up offending them straight up. Yeah. Any other questions? Before I run off and start sweating to the oldies and the honey. Let's see, how am I doing with time? 5:30, cool. Yeah. Any other last questions? No? Cool. Thank you guys so much for having me. Love to so much you guys do for the community. Especially all the organizations and stuff. You guys are just so generous and wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, man. You catch my nephew up on the 3 Street Experience?
That's right.
Yes.
Main Street, 7 to 10 tonight. I'm off. Ready for sound check.